Hey guys, the Women's Grand Prix has just finished on a very high note in Austria. The events, it's a series of 6 events ranging from mid 2024 to mid 2025, in which all of the top female players of the world participate and try and win the 2 spots that qualify to the Women's Candidates Tournament. As I said, the tournament's just finished, the sixth and last final tournament. Alexandra Goryachkina from Russia and Zuzhina from China are the 2 qualifiers for the candidates, with Anna Muzichuk just behind in 3rd place and missing the qualification spot by very few points. As most of you already know, I was selected by FIDE to work as press officer in 2 of the 6 events. I was at Cyprus, in Nicosia, and also very recently I came back from India, from Pune. For this video I even put on my official shirt. As you can see, FIDE Women's Grand Prix in Pune, and it's a really nice t-shirt which I wear for the occasion of this video, and one of the many I have from these tournaments I go to. Now, I'm going to bring you 4 miniature games from this 6 event series of tournaments. As you probably know by now, the tournaments of the Grand Prix have a special rule which prevents draw offers before move 40. This is very interesting because this makes it much more difficult for players to sort of arrange a Grandmaster draw after 15 or 20 moves. Not impossible, but most of the games of the 6 tournaments have finished over 30 and 40 moves, many of them with decisive victories. But a few of them finished below the 25 move marker, giving for a miniature game, and I've decided to select 4 of them to show you guys in the following days. We're going to start off with the game between Divya, International Master Divya from India, rated 2460, against her colleague Grandmaster Vaishali, also from India, rated 2484. This is a good one. It features a very interesting trap in the opening, and for all of you who enjoy playing the Ruy Lopez, I think it's worth checking out. So, for those of you who don't know much theory, I'm going to very briefly give you the main ideas of the Ruy Lopez. We developed the bishop to b5. We're not threatening to capture on c6 yet, but at some point this will be a threat and black will have to defend. The fact is, after a6, bishop to a4, if we were to swap now, black would recapture and the e5 pawn cannot be captured because after queen to d4, black would recover the pawn very fast and very simply. So we go bishop to a4, knight to f6, hitting the pawn on e4, and now we go castle. Now, for example, if black goes bishop to e7, which is the standard move, we first of all protect our pawn on e4, and now black should really play b5 to chase the bishop away. Now here, for example, if black makes the mistake of castling, now we do and will capture on c6, and we will pick up the pawn on e5, because now queen to d4 is bad because of knight to f3, and black can't recover the pawn. So going back to the move bishop to b5, one of the ideas of the Spanish, the Ruy Lopez, is to attack the knight, threaten to capture it, but not straight away. And in a few moves we will have the right of capturing the knight unless black does something to prevent it. Now when black does prevent that with, for example, the b5 move, then we get in other different ideas after bishop to b3. So for this game, Vaishali played knight to e4, which is the open variation. Here we have 2 moves. Rook to e1 is very solid, very simple, but it doesn't get an advantage. The most interesting move is d4. And after the theoretical b5, bishop to b3, and d5 protects the knight, d takes e5 threatens the pawn on d5, black will play bishop to e6, And this is the open Spanish, a very interesting and theoretical line. And here white has different ways of proceeding. c3 is possible, queen to d3 is possible, knight b to d2, several different interesting moves. For this game, Vaishali played the less common bishop to e7. Perfectly playable, but I think not so good as the main line. But as Divya told me after the game, because I interviewed her after this game, she told me that she'd already played this before in another tournament, and she checked it just before the start of the game, thinking that maybe Vaishali would try to surprise her with this line. So she was very lucky to have checked it just before the game. She plays rook to e1, hitting the knight. And now b5 hits the bishop, rook takes knight, d5 attacking both the rook and also the bishop. And this is theoretical. And after knight takes e5, knight takes e5, rook takes e4, pawn takes bishop, queen to e2. This is the critical position of the variation. Black's pawn structure is totally damaged, as you can see. These pawns are not very strong. But black does have the pair of bishops and a very small edge in development. So if black is able to castle and kick the rook away, black's middle game chances will be very good because of the bishop pair. Now, will white be able to take advantage of the momentum to do something before that happens? Well, it all depends if you know your theory. And as I said before, Divya had checked the theory and she knew what she was doing. She plays the best move, which is f4, threatening to play f5, winning a piece. So black can't castle now because after f5, we win one of the two bishops. This forces black to play king to f8, but still this is theoretically good. f5, bishop to d7, and theoretically this is still good. The d5 can't be captured because black will trap the rook with c6, and the rook has nowhere to go and will be trapped very soon. Or other bad things can happen after this sort of maneuver. f5 or d4 will now fall. So white plays knight c3, hitting the pawn. Black plays f6. Again, the pawn can't be captured because of c6. This is all theory. So Vaishali attacks the rook and Divya drops back to e3, giving up the pawn on f5. But she has the riposte queen to f3. Now this was all worked out before the game by Divya. And in fact, at this point of the game, both Divya and Vaishali had more time than they'd started with. They were playing out, they were blitzing the moves out really, really fast because both of them knew the theory. Now what we're going to see now is very important from an instructive point of view. If you are coaches or you are players who are thinking to improve, you really must pay attention to the psychological thing that happens now. Very important. Vaishali plays queen to d7, which is correct. Bishop takes c2 is not good at all. And Divya plays knight to d5. And we arrive at the critical position. Pay attention to what I'm going to say now. This is very important. As I said before, both players had been blitzing out their moves really fast. Why? Because they were theoretical moves that they'd already learned, memorized beforehand. Now, many years ago, Garry Kasparov, probably the best player in history with Magnus Carlsen, used to play his theoretical moves with 30 seconds to 1 minute thought. And when he was asked about that, he said, as far as I recall, that although he knew the moves that he had to play, he still thought it was a good idea to ponder over them for 30 seconds or 60 seconds, just to make sure they were the correct moves, although he knew them, but also to allow his brain to get into the mood of the game. Because he knew that at some point there would be a new move that he didn't know, and he didn't want to play it fast like the other moves before. So I actually use this strategy in my own games. Even though I've prepared my game beforehand, I still think 30 to 45 seconds for each move. One, to make sure my brain is getting into the groove of the game, so when I need to think, already it's warmed up. And two, to avoid doing a finger filler, which basically means moving a piece when I knew that the piece I had to move was the other one, but for some reason my hand went to get the piece. And Vaishali does a finger filler here. Instead of playing rook to e8, which is the theoretical move protecting the bishop, and after knight takes c7, not queen takes c7 because of queen to f5, but bishop to g4, intermediate move hitting the queen, and after queen to g3, rook to c8, this leads to a line which is a forced draw. And Divya knew that. She told me after the game that this is a forced draw after many moves. Instead of this, Vaishali played bishop to g4 straight away, which is the second move of the variation. But of course, she'd memorized it and she just lashed out bishop g4, a huge mistake. And now white doesn't play queen to g3, but white plays knight to f6, hitting the rook on a8 and also hitting the queen on d7. And now white is totally winning, because if black captures the knight, the rook is lost, and when Vaishali captured the queen, Divya took on d7 with check and dropped back to c5. Now the bishop on f3 is threatened, and more importantly, the bishop on e7 is pinned to the king. By the way, king to f7 wasn't possible because of knight to e5 check, winning a piece. So king to e8, knight to c5, bishop to c6, and now rook to e6, very strong, hitting the bishop and preparing bishop to g5. White is completely winning here. Bishop to d7, rook to e3. We have to play h6 to prevent bishop to g5, and now bishop to d2, threatening rook to e1, winning the piece. Rook to f8, just trying to defend with king to f7. Rook to a1, rook to f7, and bishop to b4. And there is no way to prevent knight takes d7 and rook takes e7. For example, rook to b8, we just drop back to a3. And this threat is totally unstoppable. And of course, white is winning a piece. Therefore, Vaishali decided to resign. Now, you can say what you want. Divya won fair and square this game and scored a very important victory. Of course, Vaishali was logically unhappy about her performance, but of course she's a very strong player and she'll improve and keep pushing forward and be one of the best players in the world. Both of these ladies are really tough opponents. I've had the fortune to be able to meet them, to interview them, to talk chess with them, and that's made me also a better chess player. And I'm hoping to transfer this knowledge to you guys out there. So, have a good one today. Leave a comment, subscribe if you're not down there. And I think we'll be organizing this weekend the meet and greet with me on Livshitz to play some live games. I'll give you an hour and a day in my next video during the week. See you soon. Have a good one. Improve, learn, and enjoy.